The morning sky over Altair Colony burned red with death. Commander Vexstar stood on the bridge of his warship and watched the city below turn to glass. The plasma cannons fired again and again. Each blast melted buildings like ice in fire. The screams had stopped hours ago. Now there was only silence and the smell of burning air. "Status report," Vexstar said. His voice was cold and sharp like broken metal. "Sector 7 is complete, Commander," replied his weapons officer. "The humans in that area are all dead." Vexstar nodded. The Altarians were not really humans, but they looked similar. 2 arms, 2 legs, soft pink skin. They had built nice cities with gardens and schools. They had art and music. They had children who played in parks. Now they had nothing but Ashdod. This was the way of the Zephyrian hegemony. For 800 years, they had ruled the galaxy with fire and fear. There, great warships traveled from star to star, bringing the same message to every world. Submit or die. Most chose to submit. The smart ones did. Anyway, the Zephyrians were not like other species. They stood 8 feet tall with green scales that could stop bullets. Their eyes were yellow and cold like winter suns. Their teeth were sharp enough to bite through steel. They had been born on a world where only the strongest lived. War was in their blood. Their technology was the best in the galaxy. Their plasma weapons could melt mountains. Their shields could stop any attack. Their ships were fast and deadly. No one could fight them and win. Admiral Kethver had taught them this lesson many times. Kethver was the greatest military leader the hegemony had ever known. He had conquered more worlds than any other commander. His flagship, the Worldrender, was the most feared ship in space. It was 3 miles long and carried enough firepower to destroy a moon. Right now, Kethver was watching the destruction of Altair Colony from his command chair. The chair was made from the bones of his enemies. The walls around him were covered with the flags of defeated worlds. There were thousands of them. "Beautiful work, Commander Vexstar," Kethver said into his communication device. "The Altarians fought bravely, but they fought stupidly. They should have surrendered when we gave them the chance." "Yes, Admiral," Vexstar replied. "What are your orders for the survivors?" "What survivors?" Kethver asked. Vexstar looked at his scanners. There were still life signs in the ruins of the city. Not many, but some. Men, women, and children hiding in basements and caves. They were hurt and scared, and probably going to die anyway. "I count about 3,000, Admiral." "Make it 0. The plasma cannons fired again. The scanners went dark. Altair Colony was now completely dead. This was how the hegemony had built their empire. World by world, battle by battle, death by death. They had started with just one planet, 8 centuries ago. Now they controlled 3,000 star systems. Billions of beings lived under their rule. Most had never known freedom. The galaxy had learned to fear the sound of Zephyrian engines. When their black ships appeared in a system sky, people knew what was coming. Some worlds tried to fight. Others tried to hide. A few tried to run. None of it worked. The hegemony's war machine was too big, too strong, too perfect. They had the best weapons, the best ships, the best soldiers. They had experience from 1,000 campaigns. They had the will to do whatever it took to win. But, most importantly, they had fear on their side. Fear was their greatest weapon. It was better than plasma cannons or nuclear bombs. Fear made enemies surrender before the first shot was fired. Fear made allies betray each other for mercy. Fear made the galaxy bow down and accept slavery rather than face extinction. Admiral Kethver understood this better than anyone. He was not just a military commander. He was an artist of terror. He knew exactly how much destruction to cause, how many civilians to kill, how much hope to crush. Too little, and rebellions would start. Too much, an entire species would choose suicide over submission. He had found the perfect balance. The galaxy lived in fear, but it lived. "Admiral," said his intelligence officer, "a young Zephyrian named Sikalon. We have received reports from the Outer Rim Scouts." "What kind of reports?" "Strange ones, sir. The Scouts have encountered a new species. They call themselves humans." Kethver turned in his chair. His yellow eyes focused on Sikalon like targeting lasers. "Tell me about these humans." "They are similar to the Altarians in appearance, Admiral. 2 arms, 2 legs, carbon-based. They breathe oxygen and drink water. They seem to have basic space travel technology. And they refuse to surrender when ordered to do so." Kethver was quiet for a long moment. Then he began to laugh. It was a cold sound like breaking glass. They refused? Did they not understand the consequences? The Scouts explained Galactic Pacification Protocol 7 very clearly. "Admiral, the humans listened to the whole speech. Then they said no." "What happened next?" "The Scout captain followed standard procedure. He destroyed one of their small vessels as a demonstration. The humans responded by destroying 3 of our ships." Kethver stopped laughing. "How?" "We are not sure, Admiral. The weapons they used were unlike anything in our database. Some kind of kinetic projectile system. Our shields had no effect. This was interesting. Very interesting. In 800 years of conquest, no species had ever surprised the hegemony with new technology. Their scientists had studied every possible form of warfare. They knew about energy weapons, particle beams, plasma cannons, fusion bombs, antimatter, warheads. They had defenses for everything, but kinetic projectiles? That was primitive, ancient. It was the kind of weapon a species used before they discovered proper military technology. No civilized race had used kinetic weapons in thousands of years. So how had these humans made them work against hegemony? "Shields? Where are these humans located?" Kethver asked. "The Outer Rim, Admiral, near the Kepler expanse. They seem to control about 50 star systems." 50 systems? Kethver's voice became dangerous. "And they refused to surrender?" "Yes, Admiral." Kethver stood up from his bone chair. He was 12 feet tall, even bigger than most Zephyrians. His scales were black with silver edges. His claws were as long as knives. When he moved, his armor made sounds like grinding metal. "Prepare the 47th Subjugation Fleet," he ordered. "I want 200 ships. Heavy cruisers, battleships, and destroyers. Full plasma armament and nuclear capability." "Yes, Admiral. When do you want them to deploy?" "Immediately. These humans need to learn their place in the galaxy." Sikalon looked nervous. "Admiral, perhaps we should gather more intelligence first. The humans destroyed 3 scout ships with ease. Maybe we should approach this more carefully." Kethver turned his terrible gaze on the young officer. Sikalon took a step backward. "Officer." "Sikalon," Kethver said quietly. "In 800 years, has any species ever successfully resisted the hegemony?" "No, Admiral." "Has any species ever won a battle against our forces?" "No, Admiral." "Has any species ever been foolish enough to refuse surrender twice?" "No, Admiral." "Then, why would these humans be different?" Sikalon had no answer. Kethver walked to the great window of his bridge. Outside, the Worldrender's escort fleet moved through space like hunting sharks. Hundreds of ships, each one capable of destroying a planet. This was the power that had conquered the galaxy. "The humans will learn," he said. "They will learn that the hegemony always wins. They will learn that resistance brings only death. They will learn to kneel, or they will learn to die." He turned back to his officers. "Send the fleet. Show these humans what happens to those who defy the hegemony. Make sure the lesson is very, very clear. The orders went out across the communication networks. In shipyards throughout hegemony space, warships began to power their engines. Crews reported to battle stations. Weapons were loaded and shields were charged. The 47th Subjugation Fleet would be the largest force ever sent against a single species. 200 of the hegemony's finest warships, commanded by Admiral HFY himself. It was enough. Firepower to sterilize 100 worlds. Surely, it would be enough to handle a few primitive humans with their ancient kinetic weapons. Surely. Captain Sarah Chun was drinking coffee when the alarm started screaming. She was in her quarters on the Defiance, reading reports from Earth and trying to pretend the coffee did not taste like motor oil. It was supposed to be Colombian dark roast, but the food processors on military ships always made everything taste the same. Like sadness in recycled air, the alarm changed everything. Red lights flashed on her walls. Her communication screen lit up with urgent messages. The coffee cup fell from her hand and floated away in the low gravity. "Captain, to the bridge," came the voice of her first officer, Commander Martinez. "We have contacts." Sarah was already moving. She grabbed her uniform jacket and ran down the narrow corridor. The Defiance was not a big ship by Earth standards, but it was fast and deadly. It had been built to patrol the outer edges of human space, looking for threats and opportunities. Today, it seemed like they had found both. The bridge was busy when Sarah arrived. Her crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. These were good people, trained professionals, who had volunteered for the most dangerous job in the galaxy. Exploring unknown space, far from home, never knowing what they might find. "Report," Sarah said as she settled into her captain's chair. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, Martinez replied. "Multiple ships, unknown configuration. They appeared out of nowhere about 10 minutes ago." Sarah looked at the main screen. Space looked normal to her eyes, just stars and darkness. But the sensors showed something different. Red dots moving in formation, getting closer to the Defiance. "How many ships?" she asked. 15, Captain. They are big ones. Each ship is about twice our size." Sarah felt her stomach tighten. The Defiance was already a large ship by human standards. If these unknown vessels were twice as big, they were massive. And there were 15 of them. Any communication attempts? "Yes, Captain. They have been broadcasting on multiple frequencies for the past 3 minutes. The computer is still working on translation." "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled with static. Then came a voice, cold and mechanical. It spoke in perfect English, but with an accent Sarah had never heard before. "Unknown vessel, you are now in hegemony space. By order of Admiral HFY, Supreme Commander of the Zephyrian military, you will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction." Sarah looked around at her crew. They were all staring at her, waiting for orders. These were people who had followed her through 3 years of deep space patrol. They trusted her judgment. She had never heard of the Zephyrian hegemony. She had never heard of Admiral HFY, but she knew a threat when she heard one. "Open." "A channel," she said. "Channel open, Captain." Sarah stood up and faced the main screen. She straightened her uniform and put on her most professional voice. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the United Nations ship Defiance. We are on a peaceful exploration mission in what we believe to be unclaimed space. We mean no harm to you or your people." The response came back quickly. "Captain Chun, you are mistaken. There is no unclaimed space in this galaxy. All worlds, all systems, all life belongs to the hegemony. You will follow Standard Pacification Protocol 7. Power down. Your weapons, drop your shields, and prepare for boarding." "I am afraid we cannot do that," Sarah replied. The Defiance is a sovereign vessel of the United Nations of Earth. We recognize no authority over our ship or our mission. There was a long pause. Then the alien voice came back, and this time, it sounded angry. Captain Shun, you do not seem to understand your situation. The hegemony has ruled this galaxy for 800 years. We have conquered 3,000 star systems. Billions of beings obey our commands. You are one small ship, alone and far from home. You have no choice but to surrender. Sarah looked at Martinez. He was shaking his head slightly. Her weapons. Officer Lieutenant Kim was watching her scanners with concern. Her navigation officer, Ensign Thompson, was already plotting escape routes. They were scared. Sarah was scared too. But fear had never stalked humans before. I understand the situation perfectly, Sarah said. You are demanding that we surrender. To you, my answer is no. Another pause. When the alien voice returned, it was different, colder, more dangerous. Captain Shun, perhaps you need a demonstration of hegemony power. Observe. On the main screen, the 15 alien ships came into visual range. They were huge and black, with sharp edges and glowing red lights. They looked like weapons, built for one purpose only. One of the ships fired at a nearby asteroid. A beam of pure energy lanced out across space. When it hit the asteroid, the rock simply disappeared, vaporized, gone. That was a Class 4 plasma cannon, the alien voice said. Each of our ships carries 20 of them. Your primitive vessel cannot possibly withstand such firepower. Surrender now, or we will demonstrate on your hull instead of an asteroid. Sarah felt her crew looking at her again. The smart thing to do would be to surrender. Maybe try to negotiate. Maybe look for a chance to escape later. But Sarah Chun had not become a starship captain by doing the smart thing. She had gotten here by doing the right thing, even when it was dangerous. Mr. Kim, she said quietly, target the lead ship with rail guns. Load armor-piercing rounds. Aye, Captain, Kim replied. Her fingers danced across her control panel. Mr. Thompson, plot a course that will take us through their formation. Maximum acceleration on my mark. Aye, Captain. Sarah opened the communication channel one more time. Unknown alien vessels, this is Captain Shun. I have heard your demands and your threats. I have seen your demonstration of power. My response is this. The UN's defiance does not surrender. If you want our ship, you will have to take it. She closed the channel and turned to her crew. Battle stations. The bridge transformed. Emergency lighting came on. Blast shields dropped over the windows. The crew strapped themselves into their chairs. The Defiance's computer began running combat calculations at light speed. Captain, Martinez said quietly. Are you sure about this? 15 ships against one? Sarah smiled. It was not a nice smile. Commander, have you ever heard the story of the Battle of Thermopylae? Yes, Captain. 300 Spartans against the Persian army. That is right. They were outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Everyone said they could not win. They all died, Captain. Yes, they did. But they also showed the world that the Persian Empire could bleed. Sometimes that is more important than winning. The alien ships were getting closer. Sarah could see them clearly now. They were beautiful in a terrible way, like sharks or wolves, built for killing and very good at it. Captain, Kim said, weapons are ready. I have a target lock on the lead ship. Captain, Thompson said, course is plotted. We are ready to move. Sarah sat down in her captain's chair. She thought about Earth, millions of miles away. She thought about her family, her friends, her home. She thought about the millions of humans who had no idea that hostile aliens existed. If the Defiance died here today, would anyone ever know? Would Earth learn about the hegemony before it was too late? Maybe not, But maybe the aliens would learn something too. Maybe they would learn that humans do not surrender. Maybe they would learn that some fights are worth having, even if you cannot win. All hands, this is the captain, Sarah said over the ship's communication system. We are about to engage hostile alien forces. The odds are not in our favor, but that has never stopped us before. Remember who you are. Remember what you represent. We are the United Nations ship Defiance, and today we will live up to our name. The alien ships opened fire. 15 plasma cannons lit up space with deadly energy. The beams were so bright, they hurt to look at. They reached across the darkness, like the fingers of an angry god. Now, Sarah shouted. The Defiance leaped forward. Like a bullet from a gun. Its engines burned at maximum power. The ship twisted and rolled, dancing between the plasma beams with impossible grace. The first beam missed by inches. The second beam missed by feet. The third beam grazed the Defiance's shields, sending sparks flying across the bridge. Return fire, Sarah ordered. The railguns spoke. They did not make the flashy light show of the alien plasma weapons. They were quieter, more subtle. Just small pieces of metal, accelerated to incredible speeds. Kinetic energy in its purest form. The first round hit the lead alien ship dead center. It punched through the vessel's shields like they were made of paper. It tore through the hull like tissue. It kept going until it hit something important inside. The alien ship exploded. For a moment, everyone was silent. The aliens, the humans, even space itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the communication channel crackled to life. Impossible, the alien voice said. It sounded shocked, confused, afraid. Our shields ... How did you penetrate our shields? Sarah smiled again. You want to know the secret? She said. Mass times velocity equals force. It is very simple physics. Your energy shields are designed to stop energy weapons. They do not work very well against good old-fashioned kinetic energy. She paused. Also, you are fighting humans now. We are very good at killing things. The battle began in earnest. The alien ships fired their plasma cannons again and again. The Defiance dodged and weaved between the beams, its human crew pushing their ship to its limits. But the Defiance was not just running. It was hunting. The railguns fired continuously. Armor-piercing rounds tore through alien. Admiral Kethfer stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched 67 warships prepare for battle. The 47th Subjugation Fleet stretched across space like a metal storm cloud. Each ship was a masterpiece of Zephyrian engineering. They carried the finest weapons, the strongest shields, the most experienced crews in the galaxy. This was enough firepower to crack moons. It was enough to sterilize entire star systems. It was enough to teach one small human ship that the hegemony always wins. Admiral, reported Commander Zekhan, his tactical officer. All ships are in position. We have the human vessel surrounded. Kethver studied the tactical display. The human ship sat in the center of his formation, like a tiny insect caught in a web. It was smaller than his smallest escort vessel. Its hull looked primitive, made of simple metal instead of advanced composites. Had such a pathetic craft destroyed 3 of his scouts? What is the status of their weapons? Kethver asked. Scans show multiple kinetic projectile systems, Admiral. Railguns and missile launchers. Primitive technology, but the projectiles are moving at very high velocity. And their shields? Weak. Energy shields only, Admiral. They appear to rely mostly on armor plating for protection. Kethver nodded. This made sense. The humans were clearly a young species, still using ancient combat methods. They probably did not even understand how energy warfare worked. Open a communication channel, he ordered. The main screen flickered to life. It showed the bridge of the human ship. Kethvar saw creatures that looked similar to the Altarians he had just finished killing. 2 arms, 2 legs, soft skin, weak bodies. The one in the center wore some kind of uniform and sat in a command chair. This must be their captain. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Hegemony," he said in his most commanding voice. "You are Captain Shun, I believe." "That is correct," the human replied. Her voice was calm, showing no fear. This surprised Kethvar. Most species begged for mercy when they saw his fleet. "Captain Shun, you have caused considerable trouble for the Hegemony. You destroyed 3 of my scout ships without provocation. This is an act of war. Your scouts threatened my ship and demanded our surrender," the human said. "We defended ourselves, nothing more." Kethvar felt his anger building. This primitive creature dared to argue with him? "Captain, you are surrounded by 67 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy your vessel 100 times over. I am offering you one final chance to surrender. Refuse, and I will demonstrate why the Hegemony has ruled the stars for 8 centuries." The human captain was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Admiral, I have a counteroffer. Withdraw your fleet from this system, and I will not destroy it." Kethvar stared at the screen in disbelief. Then he began to laugh. His officers joined in. Soon the entire bridge was filled with the sound of Zephyrian amusement. "You will not destroy my fleet?" Kethvar said when he could speak again. "Captain, you command 1 ship. 1 small, primitive ship with obsolete weapons and weak armor. I command 67 vessels that have conquered worlds. What makes you think you can threaten me?" "Because," the human said, "you are not fighting Altarians or any other species you have bullied before. You are fighting humans, and humans do not lose." She paused. "Also, Admiral, you made a mistake when you positioned your ships." "What mistake?" "You surrounded me," Captain Shun said. "That means no matter which direction I shoot, I hit an enemy." The communication ended. Kethvar stared at the empty screen for a moment, then turned to his crew. "All ships, open fire. Destroy that vessel immediately." 67 plasma cannons fired at once. Space lit up like a new sun. Energy beams converged on the human ship from every direction. The combined firepower was enough to melt an asteroid. No ship in the galaxy could survive such an attack. But when the light faded, the human vessel was still there. It was moving. The Defiant spun and twisted through space like a living thing. It moved faster than any ship Kethvar had ever seen. The plasma beams that should have vaporized it missed by inches, by feet, by miles. "How is it moving so fast?" Kethvar demanded. "Unknown, Admiral," Zekhan replied. "Our computers calculate its acceleration at impossible levels. The crew should be dead from the G-forces. Fire again." The second volley was more coordinated. The gunners tried to predict where the human ship would be, not where it was. But the Defiance changed direction at the last second, rolling between 2 battleships and emerging unharmed on the other side. Then it fired back. The railgun round hit the battleship dominant victory in the engine section. The kinetic projectile punched through the ship's plasma shields like they were made of air. It tore through armor plating, support beams, and vital systems. The battleship's fusion reactor went critical. The explosion lit up half the fleet. "Impossible," Kethvar whispered. But the human ship was not finished. It launched a spread of missiles at the cruiser Dark Conquest. The Zephyrian point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. The missiles swarmed over the cruiser like angry insects, each one finding a weak spot in the armor. Dark Conquest broke apart in a shower of metal and fire. "All ships, concentrate fire," Kethvar shouted. "Bring that thing down." The fleet tried to focus their weapons on the Defiance, but the human ship refused to stay still. It darted between the larger Zephyrian vessels, using them as shields. When the hegemony ships fired, they were as likely to hit each other as their target. The Defiance took advantage of the confusion. Its railguns fired continuously, each shot aimed with deadly precision. Zephyrian ships began to die. The destroyer's swift death took a kinetic round through its bridge. Everyone on the command deck was killed instantly. The cruiser Iron Fist lost its weapon systems to a missile strike. It drifted helplessly while the Defiance used it for target practice. The battleship, Final Judgment, tried to ram the human vessel. The Defiance simply moved out of the way at the last second, then put 3 railgun rounds into the battleship's reactor core. "This cannot be happening," Kethver said. He gripped the arms of his command chair until his claws left marks in the metal. This cannot be happening. But it was happening. His perfect fleet, the pride of the hegemony military, was being torn apart by a single human ship. The tactical display showed red indicators everywhere. Ship after ship went dark. "Admiral," Zekhan said. His voice was shaking. "We have lost 23 vessels. Several more are heavily damaged." "How long has this battle been going on?" 47 minutes, Admiral. Less than an hour." In less than an hour, one human ship had destroyed nearly half of his fleet. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. It was humiliating. "Sir, his communication?" Officer called out. "We are receiving surrender requests from several of our ships." "Surrender?" Kethver roared. "Zephyrian warriors do not surrender. They are requesting permission to withdraw, Admiral. Their captains say they cannot fight. An enemy they cannot hit." Kethver looked at the tactical display again. The human ship was still dancing through his formation, still killing his vessels one by one. It had taken damage. He could see that. Its hull was scorched in places, and one of its weapon systems was offline, but it was still fighting. Still winning. "What are the humans doing that we are not?" he asked quietly. "Admiral? Their ship is smaller than ours. Their weapons are weaker. Their technology is primitive. So why are they winning?" Zekhan studied his instruments for a moment before answering. "I believe it is their movement patterns, Admiral. They are not following standard combat doctrine. They fight like ... double quotes. Like what?" "Like they are not afraid to die, Admiral." Kethver considered this. Zephyrian military doctrine was based on overwhelming force and technological superiority. Their ships were built to withstand enemy fire while delivering devastating attacks. They were strong, but they were also predictable. The humans fought differently. They were fast, agile, unpredictable. They took risks that no sane commander would take. They attacked when they should defend, retreated when they should attack, and somehow made it all work. It was not logical. It was not scientific. It was not the Zephyrian way, but it was effective. "Admiral," his sensor officer reported, "the human ship is changing course. It is heading directly for us." Kethver looked at the main screen. The Defiance was indeed coming toward his flagship, the mighty World Render. It was moving fast, its engines burning at maximum power. "Is it attempting to ram us?" he asked. "Unknown, Admiral. But at its current speed, impact will occur in 3 minutes." Kethver smiled. Finally, the humans were making a mistake. The World Render was 10 times larger than their ship, with armor thick enough to stop any weapon they possessed. If they wanted to die in a useless ramming attack, he would be happy to accommodate them. "All weapons, target the human ship," he ordered. "Do not let it reach us." The World Render's massive plasma cannons swiveled to track the approaching human vessel. 20 of the most powerful energy weapons ever built prepared to fire. But the Defiance was not coming in a straight line. It twisted and spun, making itself a difficult target. The plasma beams reached out like grasping fingers, but the human ship slipped between them. 2 minutes to impact, the sensor officer reported. Fire everything. HFY commanded that the world render unleashed its full firepower. Plasma cannons. The news spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On Kepler 7, in the slave quarters deep beneath the mining facilities, a Valdari worker whispered to his friend, "Did you hear? The humans destroyed a hegemony fleet. 60 ships gone in one." Battle. His friend looked around nervously. "Keep your voice down. If the guards hear you talking about rebellion." "This is not rebellion talk," the first worker said. "This is hope." On Vega Prime, in the underground meeting halls where resistance fighters gathered in secret, the story was told differently. The human ship moved like lightning. The Zephyrians could not even touch it. Their plasma cannons were useless. There. Shields meant nothing. How many humans were on the ship? Someone asked. 300. 300 humans destroyed 60 Zephyrian warships? Yes, and they did it in less than 2 hours. On Centauri colony, the news reached the surface through hidden communication networks. Within days, graffiti appeared on government buildings. Simple words in a dozen different languages. Humans fight. Humans win. Humans do not surrender. The hegemony tried to stop the stories. They executed anyone caught spreading rumors about human victories. They shut down communication networks. They imposed curfews and martial law, but the stories kept spreading. They moved through slave quarters and prison camps, through underground networks and secret meetings. They grew with each telling, becoming legends, becoming myths, becoming something more powerful than any weapon. They became Hope. Admiral HFY stood before the Hegemony War Council, his head held high despite his shame. The council chamber was vast and dark, filled with the greatest military minds in Zephyrian history. 12 ancient warriors who had conquered more worlds than any other beings in the galaxy. They were not pleased. "Explain to me," said Grand Marshal HFY, the oldest and most feared of the council members, "how you managed to lose 59 warships to a single enemy vessel." HFY kept his voice steady. "The humans possess technology we have never encountered before, Grand Marshal. Their kinetic weapons can penetrate our shields. Their ships move with impossible speed and agility." Impossible speed? Another council member, Marshal Riektal, leaned forward. "Are you telling us that these primitives have discovered some new form of propulsion?" "Not new propulsion, Marshal. New tactics. They fight in ways we have never seen. They take risks that no rational commander would take. They use their own weaknesses as strengths." "You sound as if you admire them," Grand Marshal HFY said. Coldly. HFY chose his words carefully. "I respect any enemy who can outfight the hegemony fleet, Grand Marshal. These humans are not like the other species we have conquered. They are dangerous." "How dangerous?" asked Marshal Vexkar. "You fought one ship. How many ships do they have?" "Intelligence reports suggest thousands, Marshal. Their home system appears to have extensive industrial facilities. They could field a fleet larger than ours." The council chamber fell silent. For 800 years, the hegemony had been the largest military force in the galaxy. The idea that some unknown species could match their numbers was disturbing. "What do you recommend?" Grand Marshal HFY asked. HFY had been thinking about this question during the long journey home. He had watched his proud fleet limping back to hegemony space. Half his ships destroyed, the survivors traumatized by their defeat. He had seen the fear in his officers' eyes, the way they jumped at shadows and whispered about human weapons. "I recommend caution, Grand Marshal. We should gather more intelligence about human capabilities before attempting another assault. Perhaps we could negotiate some kind of agreement. Negotiate?" Marshal Riektal slammed his fist on the council table. The hegemony does not negotiate with primitives. We conquer them. With respect, Marshal, the humans are not primitives. They proved that when they destroyed my fleet. Your fleet was unprepared, said another council member, Marshal Kethener. You underestimated the enemy. A larger force, properly equipped and ready for kinetic weapons, could overwhelm them. How large a force? Kethver asked. All of it. Grand Marshal Vekver said quietly. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we possess. We will assemble the entire hegemony fleet and crush these humans before they can spread their rebellion to other species. Kethver felt a chill run down his spine. The entire fleet? That was 3,000 warships, the accumulated military might of 8 centuries of conquest. Grand Marshal, is that wise? If we deploy our entire fleet against the humans, what happens? To the rest of our territory? Who will maintain order on our conquered worlds? The conquered worlds will remain conquered because they know the price of rebellion, Vekver replied. Once we destroy the humans, we will make an example of them. That will be remembered for 1,000 years. No species will ever dare to resist us again. But even as the Grand Marshal spoke, rebellion was already beginning. On Kepler 7, the Valdari miners refused to report for their shifts. When the Zephyrian guards came to force them back to work, they found the mine sealed with explosives. Where? Did you get the bombs? The guard captain demanded. We made them, replied the mine foreman, an elderly Valdari named Thok. We used the same materials you force us to extract from the ground. Ironic, is it not? You will pay for this rebellion, the captain snarled. Perhaps, Thok said. But we have heard about the humans. We know that resistance is possible. We know that the hegemony can be defeated. The guard captain raised his plasma rifle. The humans are far away, old fool. They cannot help you. Thok smiled. The humans do not need to be here, Captain. Their example is enough. The rifle fired. Thok fell dead. But behind him, 1,000 Valdari workers took up mining tools and turned them into weapons. The rebellion had begun. On Vega Prime, the resistance fighters emerged from their underground hideouts. They attacked hegemony supply convoys, sabotaged government buildings, and freed prisoners from detention centers. The Zephyrian colonial governor, Administrator Vikshan, called for reinforcements. I need more troops, he told the hegemony command. Center. The vegans have gone completely insane. They are fighting like they think they can actually win. How many rebels are there? Asked the voice from command. I estimate 50,000 active fighters, with perhaps 10 times that number. Providing support. 50,000? On Vega Prime? That colony only has 2 million inhabitants. Yes, Commander. Nearly every adult vegan has joined the rebellion. They are calling it the Human War. The Human War? They believe the humans are coming to liberate them. They think this is the beginning of the end for hegemony rule. There was a long pause from the command center. Then, Administrator Vikshan, you will suppress this rebellion immediately. Use any means necessary. Commander, I would need to kill half the population to stop this uprising. The rebels are not fighting like normal insurgents. They are fighting like the humans fought at Proxima. They do not seem to care about their own survival. Then kill half the population, the voice said coldly. Make an example that will be remembered. But Administrator Vikshan was not the only hegemony official facing rebellion. On Centauri colony, the Altarian survivors had organized armed resistance groups. On Rigel Station, the Andromedan dock workers had seized control of the spaceport. On Delta 7, the Terran prisoners of war had escaped from their camps and were rallying the local population. Everywhere, the story was the same. Species that had been crushed under hegemony rule for generations were suddenly fighting back. They had heard about the human victory, and it had given them something they had lost long ago. It had given them hope. In the hegemony intelligence. Center, Director Malkin studied the reports flowing in from across the Empire. Red indicators covered the galactic map, each one representing a world in open revolt. "How many systems are affected?" asked his assistant, Subdirector Palmer. "Over 400, Malkin replied. "And the number is growing every day. 400 systems in rebellion? That is more than we have ever faced at once." "It gets worse," Malkin said. He activated another display, showing communication intercepts. The rebel groups are coordinating with each other. They are sharing tactics, weapons designs, and intelligence. About hegemony troop movements. How is that possible? We control all long-range communications. They are using the humans' communication protocols. Somehow, the humans have taught them how to encrypt their messages in ways our computers cannot break. Palmer stared at the display in disbelief. "You mean the humans are actively supporting these rebellions?" "I do not know," Malkin admitted. "We have no direct evidence of human involvement. But the rebel groups are using human tactical doctrines, human communication methods, even human battle cries." "What battle cries?" Malkin played an audio recording. It was scratchy and distorted, but they could make out voices shouting in various alien languages. The words were different, but the meaning was the same. Humans fight. Humans win. Humans do not surrender. "They are not even human," Palmer said quietly. "But they are fighting like humans." "That is the problem," Malkin replied. "The human example has shown every conquered species in the galaxy that the hegemony can be beaten. Now they all want to try." Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the hegemony's greatest fleet was. The Battle of Zephyr Prime began at 0600 hours, Galactic Standard Time, 3000 hegemony. Warships faced 7 human vessels in the space above the capital world of the Zephyrian Empire. It was the largest fleet action in galactic history. And possibly the most lopsided. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship and studied the tactical display. The human ships hung in space like 7 tiny dots of light, impossibly small against the vast dark of his fleet. "Are you certain there are only 7 of them?" he asked his sensor officer. "Yes, Admiral. 7 ships, all similar in design to the vessel you encountered at Proxima. No support craft, no reinforcements detected." Kethvar shook his head in disbelief. Either the humans were incredibly brave, or incredibly stupid. 7 ships against 3000? It was suicide. "Admiral," his communication officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission from the lead human vessel." "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of a human ship. Kethvar recognized the figure in the captain's chair immediately. Captain Sarah Chun, the woman who had humiliated him at Proxima. "Admiral Kethvar," she said with a slight smile, "you brought more ships this time." "Captain Chun, I must admit, I am surprised to see you here. When my scouts reported only 7 human vessels, I assumed your government had sent someone else to die." "I volunteered," Chun replied. "This seemed like an important battle. I wanted to be here personally." 7 ships, Captain. 7 ships against 3000. Even you cannot believe you can win this battle. Chun's smile grew wider. "Admiral, you have never understood humans, have you? We do not fight because we think we can win. We fight because we think we should win." She paused. "Besides, you are making the same mistake you made at Proxima. You are thinking like a Zephyrian. But this is not a Zephyrian battle. This is a human battle. And in human battles, numbers are not everything." Kethvar was about to reply when something strange happened. The 7 human ships suddenly spread out, moving to positions around his fleet. They were fast, faster than anything he had ever seen, but that was not what worried him. What worried him was that they seemed to know exactly where to go. "Admiral," his tactical officer said nervously, "the human ships are taking up attack positions." They are targeting our command vessels. How can they know which ships are command vessels? Unknown, Admiral. But their movement patterns suggest detailed knowledge of our fleet composition. This was disturbing. Kethver's fleet was organized according to classified hegemony military doctrine. The command ships were dispersed throughout the formation to prevent exactly this kind of targeted attack. How could the humans know where they were? All ships, open fire, he ordered. Destroy those vessels immediately. 3,000 plasma cannons fired at once. The space around the human ships became a storm of deadly energy. Beams of pure destruction reached out from every direction, creating a web of death that nothing could survive. But once again, the human ships moved like living things. They twisted and rolled, dove and climbed, dancing between the plasma beams with impossible grace. The energy that should have vaporized them passed harmlessly through. Empty space. And then the humans fired back. The first target was the battleship Iron Dominion, Admiral Rekmal's flagship. A single human ship, the UNS Retribution, swept past the massive Zephyrian vessel and fired its railguns at point-blank range. The kinetic rounds punched through the battleship's shields and armor like they were made of paper. They tore through the command deck, the engine room, and the weapon systems. The Iron Dominion exploded in a ball of fire that lit up half the fleet. Admiral Rekmal and 3,000 Zephyrian warriors died in an instant. Impossible, Kethver whispered. But the humans were not finished. The UN's vengeance attacked the carrier Star Crusher, destroying its flight deck with a spread of missiles. The UN Fury crippled the dreadnought World Breaker with a single railgun shot to its reactor core. One by one, the command ships began to die. Admiral, his communication officer shouted over the noise of battle. We are losing fleet coordination. The humans are targeting our command and control systems. Kethver watched in horror as his perfect formation began to fall apart. Without their command ships, the individual Zephyrian vessels could not coordinate their attacks. They fired wildly, often hitting their own allies instead of the human targets. How are they doing this? He demanded. How are they outfighting 3,000 ships? Admiral, his tactical officer said, I think they are using our own size against us. Our fleet is so large that we cannot maneuver effectively. The humans are small and fast. They can attack any point in our formation, while we can only bring a fraction of our firepower to bear. It was true. The hegemony fleet was like a massive, slow-moving creature being attacked by 7 angry wasps. The wasps were too small and too fast to catch, but they could sting anywhere they chose, and their stings were deadly. The UN's Defiance had taken position near the center of the Zephyrian formation, where it could attack the most important targets. Captain Shun's ship moved with the deadly precision Kethver remembered from their first encounter, its weapons carving through hegemony vessels like a sword through silk. Admiral, his sensor officer reported, we have lost over 400 ships. The humans have taken minimal damage. 400 ships in less than an hour. Kethver felt sick. This was not a battle. It was a massacre. His fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that should not have been able to fight them at all. All ships, fall back, he ordered. Reform at maximum range. But even as his ships tried to retreat, the humans followed. They stayed close to the Zephyrian formation, using the larger ships as shields while continuing their deadly attacks. The UNS Justice destroyed the cruiser Dark Victory with a perfectly placed missile strike. The UNC Freedom crippled the battleship Final Judgment with its rail guns. The UNZ Liberty turned the destroyer Swift Death into floating debris. And through it all, the Defiance continued its dance of destruction, moving through the hegemony. Fleet like death itself. Admiral, his communication officer said, we are receiving surrender requests from multiple ships. Surrender? Kethver could barely believe what he was hearing. Zephyrian warriors do not surrender. Sir, the captains say they cannot fight an enemy they cannot hit. They are requesting permission to withdraw. Kethver looked at the tactical display. Red indicators covered the screen. His mighty fleet, the pride of the hegemony, was falling apart before his eyes. Deny all surrender requests, he said through gritted teeth. All ships will continue fighting until ordered otherwise. But even as he gave the order, Kethver knew it was useless. Morale was breaking. His ships were starting to flee without permission, their crews too terrified to continue fighting. The humans had done more than outfight his fleet. They had broken its spirit. "Admiral!" his tactical officer shouted. "The human flagship is approaching our position." Kethver looked at the main screen. The Defiance was indeed heading straight for his ship, just as it had done at Proxima. But this time, Kethver was ready. "All weapons target that ship," he commanded. "I want every gun on this vessel firing at maximum power." The Annihilators. Massive weapons array swiveled to track the approaching human ship. Plasma cannons, particle beams, fusion torpedoes, antimatter missiles. Everything the flagship carried was brought to bear on the single target: fire. The combined firepower of the hegemony's most powerful warship reached out toward the Defiance. Energy beams hot enough to melt planets converged on the human vessel, but Captain Chun was ready too. The Defiance rolled and twisted, using every trick of physics to avoid the incoming fire. Weapons that should have vaporized the ship missed by inches. "She is good," Kethver admitted grudgingly. "Very good." The Defiance completed its evasive maneuvers and fired back. Its railguns spoke with their characteristic thunder, sending kinetic rounds racing toward the Annihilator. The rounds hit the flagship's shields and bounced off. For a moment, Kethver felt a surge of hope. His ship's defenses were holding. Then the Defiance fired again, and again. Each shot hit the same spot on the shield, gradually weakening it. "Admiral," his defensive systems officer reported, "forward. Shields at 60%, 50%, 40%. The Defiance kept firing. Each shot was perfectly aimed, hitting the exact same point on the weakening shield. 20%, 10%, shield failure. The next railgun round punched through the failed shield and struck the Annihilator's hull. It tore through armor plating and bulkheads, finally coming to rest in the ship's main weapon control center. Every gun on the flagship went silent. Kethver stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His ship, the most powerful vessel in the Hegemony fleet, had been neutralized by a human vessel 1/10 its size. The communication system crackled to life. Captain Chun's voice filled the bridge. "Admiral Kethver, this is Captain Chun. I believe you wanted to make an example of humanity. Consider the lesson complete." Kethver said nothing. Around him, his officers watched their instruments in stunned silence. "You have lost over half your fleet, Admiral. Your flagship is crippled. Your command structure is broken. I suggest you order your remaining ships to surrender before more lives are lost."